Alright, so we are going to start on the passenger side. The ECU is located pretty much right underneath these little panels, so that's step number one. I believe we're going to start off by just getting our pry tools in here and gently prying our panel off. And then push it back towards the front of the car. We're out. And now you're gonna have this little wire. Go ahead and take that out. Underneath, we're gonna have 3 bolts holding this pad on that we need to remove. All right, clear out your glove box, and then there's going to be several clips. 1, 2, 3, and there's 2 at the top. Push in the center of the clip, and you should be able to remove these. And then this little panel will be there, and you just need to pry this open and then twist it on the side to get it through here so we can remove this portion. This should allow us to move this airbag plug out of the way so that we can slide this glove box out. A small pocket screwdriver definitely makes this kind of thing a lot easier, but any pry tool, especially these non-marring pry tools, should be able to help you out here. A lot of different clip tools. Just got to find what works best for various scenarios. Does that allow, oh god, our dash to pop out? It sure does. So I did disconnect that side. I don't know if I have to disconnect both. Looks like it might come out anyway. On one side, you can actually unhook. It's called a check, glove box check, but it's a little hinge-like thing. And on this other side, you'll have to pop this clip out and then slide this rod off. Shouldn't be too difficult, but that should allow this entire glove box to then pull out. Careful with your airbag clip. Okay, so that little retracting drawstring actually attaches to this whole thing, and then there is a light on the back which we can unplug. Maybe that should leave us with something that looks a little bit like this, where we have our 2 bolts that we just uncovered. So now we'll unscrew those and be able to drop this whole pad off. A little more work than I thought, but not too difficult at all. So I just dropped it off. That panel was ready to come out. It was just sitting in there. You might just get a good hold on this and wrestle it out. And there is our computer. Now, this thing is surprisingly gigantic. Interestingly enough, there's a little bag of salt. But yeah, this thing is quite large, man. Alright, so what we're gonna do is remove these, I guess it's just these 3 nuts holding this thing onto the metal piece. So we can see where some corrosion might be getting in here with the door. Normally, I would say that might be an indicator that there's been some moisture and stuff. These capacitors are very common, so it's probably a capacitor issue no matter what. But I don't know, I can't help but think things like that tend to help electronics die fast. I think I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this first. So just like any connector, just depress on that little tongue and gently pull it out. Try and make sure it stays nice and clean. Oh, I see it's a smaller plug. Right. So we have like a whole separate traction control and ABS module here, which is interesting to note. All right, and I get to use my little power tool. Sorry, lads. We got stuff to do. And there it is. Perhaps the source of much pain. This is the new one that has been rebuilt for us, and we will send that in as a core to the person that rebuilt it. But this is kind of an unboxing of a rebuilt part. Looks very nice, so let's compare. Everything on the part number is the same except mine has a 1 at the end, and that has a 0. I don't know if that matters. Interesting. Cool. Alright, so now we will transfer over the brackets. I'm going to go ahead and use some power tools for this one. It's definitely easy when they're all lined up as they are. Starting these by hand. Strip the fuck out of that. That's great. God damn it. Fucking bastard. Alright, that one really doesn't want to go in, which has me real nervous. The other thing I'm going to do as a courtesy to anyone who owns this car in the future is I'm going to write on it. Replaced by me, the date that it was replaced, and the fact that it was rebuilt by who. So that way, if anyone has any problems or if there's any questions, they can hopefully just take a peek at the ECU and go, oh look, it was rebuilt at XYZ time in 2023. And the installation is the reverse removal. Get those bolted up and get the appropriate hardware on there. It's all plugged in here. Don't want to force anything, but be firm. Get a nice satisfying click out of all of those. Don't force anything. Don't go in at any weird angles. Oh yes, solid, beautiful click from each and every one. Make sure we're in on either side, and honestly, it would probably be smart of me to turn the car on and test it right now, but I'm not smart. We trust our work. We trust our work more than we are smart. We're going to lift this back up into position. Now we're going to be careful with these metal tabs. We don't want to stab our beautiful Lexus interior, do we? Absolutely not. End up like one of those raggedy BMW guys. Install these clips, you'll have to re-push the pin in an outward position like that, and then you should be able to pop the clip in, and then you can just depress the middle button and pop it in place like so. Everything is back together. It is installed. I don't know if there's a specific procedure for this. Some people have said the first time they cranked it, there was some weird stuff, but it started and everything worked fine. But then afterwards, it went back to normal. They mentioned that their radio, whatever. I'm just gonna put the key in. I'm gonna turn it on. Everything's looking pretty normal. All systems are a go, and let's crank it and see if it runs. Ooh. Starts right up. And feels pretty damn good. So I am hoping to get rid of an intermittent misfire. That's what I'm hoping will be taken care of today. A lot of people boast drivability gains, all kinds of wonderful stuff. A lot of people talk about the shifting and how it feels much crisper, etc. I don't know how accurate all of that is. I don't know how much of that is kind of in their head, if you know what I mean. I'm going to start it, let it run for a little while, and we're going to see how it feels. But so far, really good. I mean, it's definitely running really smoothly. Additionally, even on some older Toyotas, when you disconnect the battery, sometimes it takes them a while to kind of learn how to idle and dial everything in. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen here, but basically the computer needs to get a reading and get an idea of like where this engine is actually running. But so far so good. Let's see. Roll my window down. We'll just let it idle for a while and let it kind of figure out its new brain. Under the hood, it sounds really nice. All right, started it right up for the second time after shutting it off, and yeah, fired right up. Feels great. Idle is smoothing out. I'm gonna go on a test drive and see what changed. Right away, I just had to take a video because it feels great to drive, but the shifting immediately feels very different. I'm honestly shocked by that. It feels like it's happening faster and it's a little more direct, but I am so surprised that that had such an effect like that. Let's see here. Put it down, okay. Oh, wow. I mean, it feels really good, man. That's great. All right. I'm going to complete this test drive. I want to be dead positive that it's gotten rid of my symptoms here. All right. I have been idling here for probably 2 minutes now, 2 full minutes, and I don't think it's missed once. So I think my misfire problem was 100% the ECU, which is pretty crazy. And hopefully all of my drivability issues, it definitely shifts way better, and it definitely has more power, dude. I kind of can't believe it. Alright, so it's been a while now since I've replaced the ECU on the Lexus LS400. First of all, it did not address the issue that I initially replaced it for. The 2 issues that I was trying to chase was some kind of intermittent pulsing, my lights coming in and out, reverberation of my lights, which also affected the idle. It was like all of the electronics seemed like the voltage was sort of waxing and waning, coming and going, and it would go, ugh. The other problem was a random intermittent misfire. So that means it was a misfire that would come and go, and I believe it was on a random cylinder. I don't know that for sure because, I mean, it's an OBD1 car and it doesn't necessarily store that data, but I'm pretty sure it was a random misfire. Now, the final thing that happened was, while all these issues were going on, I was driving my car to work and it completely shut off on the highway, which was really scary, and I don't know, it's never done anything quite like that, and to me, that seems like something that would be 100% due to the computer, or, I mean, the entire car just losing power. but pretty major issues. So that kind of freaked me out, and I thought I smelled this sulfur smell, which I had heard was also a thing, so I just kind of jumped the gun and went and replaced it. So here's the thing about the ECU on the Lexus specifically. This is a super common failure, and it's really turned into like a well-documented pattern failure. It's actually become a really common joke that every issue on the LS is caused by the ECU. So it's like, oh, brake squealing, ECU replacement, you know, whatever. The way that they fail is kind of interesting because typically when I think of electronics failing, it's either it works or it doesn't. However, with this specific issue with the LS, it does seem to reduce performance over time. So replacing these ECUs can actually restore quite a lot of performance. And there's really a lot of people who absolutely swear by doing this. There are people who swear they get power back. There are people who document that they get better mileage. All kinds of stuff. So, if you're going to throw any parts at the LS400, the ECU is not a bad one to do it with. Alright, so when it comes to rebuilding the ECU, you have some options. There are some well-established experts in the Lexus community that do this for a fee. It kind of depends on who you go with, but they might all have like a little bit of a different procedure where sometimes they'll send you a working one and then you send yours back as a core, or you send yours out to have it repaired, etc. Sometimes they just have them on the shelf and can sell them to you. Now additionally, there are people who attempt to do this job themselves. You can crack the ECU open, and with some basic soldering skills, you can then redo the capacitors yourself. Definitely a lot to know and be aware of. I really don't think it's an entry-level soldering kind of job, and I mean, it would be, you know, soldering on a motherboard. But you're certainly welcome to give it a go. I would just suggest doing your research beforehand, because I believe there are a specific type of capacitors you need to use, etc. I will also have a bunch of information about all of this in some links below, which will talk about rebuilding it as well as people you can contact. Personally, I was just trying to get it as fixed as quickly as possible, and I really just wanted the peace of mind. So I went with the option of sending it out and having someone send me a rebuilt one. And now we're about a year and a half later since I've done this repair, and everything's good. And honestly, it did improve the way the car runs, drives, and feels. Properly diagnosing this issue is also kind of a bear. There's a lot involved, and because we're talking about the ECU, especially on an older vehicle, this is like one of the only computers that run the whole car. A faulty ECU can really affect a ton of things. There's all kinds of crazy symptoms that might go along with this. So there's really a huge laundry list of things that might happen that could lead you to suspect your ECU might be an issue. And again, there are ways to test the ECU. I will again have information on how to do that. I don't think there's any way that you can crack the ECU open and do a visual inspection on the capacitors. I think when they fail, it's just not visibly obvious. I do think sometimes they make a mess, but I'm not really sure. But I'm not really 100% sure there's a way to test it. And again, because this does offer some pretty good benefits, I think a lot of people are going to get to the point where they're 90% sure and just replace the ECU anyway. And again, it is something that can like boost the performance of your car. So some of the symptoms might be shifting weird. Your engine runs odd. Your engine doesn't run at all. Some of your gauges don't work. Some of your lights are acting sporadic. And there's a few other things, but it affects like many of the electrical systems in your car and has everything to do with how it runs and drives. So just to be as clear as possible, I did just throw a part at my car hoping it would fix some issues, and honestly it kind of didn't. I never had a problem where it just suddenly didn't start, and I never had a problem of it shutting off on me while driving ever again. And again, I did see some pretty impressive performance from swapping this part out. So it's really not a bad part to replace under the slightest suspicion, honestly. And depending on how you go about it, it's really not incredibly expensive either. So I'm sorry that this video was just a remove and replace kind of video, but for the most part I think that's what a lot of people are going to do. Again, it's up to you if you want to rebuild it. Now, it would be really awesome if you could go in there and do it yourself and figure all that out. You would definitely get some good soldering practice, and it would just feel really good to get done. I'm not quite that brave. I would rather rely on the expertise of people who have done it a lot more, just to be sure, and really just because I'm tracking down a huge pain in the butt issue. But anyway, I hope this helped you at least remove and replace that computer. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your Lexus LS400 ECU does not give you too much trouble. For what it's worth, a lot of 90s Toyotas in general also had this problem, so it wasn't just the LS400, but this is certainly an extraordinarily common issue on the LS400. Definitely one of the bigger pattern failures on this car. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps, and I will see you later. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video for more if you want to see some more car content, and I'll see you later.